Protecting against loud noise is one of the most critical strategies for maintaining long-term hearing and supporting overall brain health. The inner ear contains delicate hair cells within the cochlea, which are responsible for converting sound waves into electrical signals that the brain can interpret. These hair cells are highly sensitive and do not regenerate once damaged. Exposure to prolonged or intense sound can physically damage these cells, leading to permanent hearing loss, tinnitus, and diminished auditory resolution. High decibel environments such as concerts, construction sites, industrial workplaces, or even personal headphones at excessive volume place significant strain on the auditory system. Over time, repeated exposure not only reduces the ability to perceive fine auditory details, but also decreases the richness of sensory input that the brain relies on for attention, memory, and cognitive processing. The impact of loud noise extends beyond the ears themselves. When the cochlear hair cells are damaged, the auditory cortex receives reduced or distorted input. This reduction can lead to a phenomenon known as cortical reorganization, where brain regions that previously processed detailed sound begin to repurpose themselves for other functions. While neuroplasticity allows some degree of adaptation, this can result in reduced efficiency of auditory processing, impaired speech perception, and diminished ability to localize sound sources. For example, understanding conversations in noisy environments becomes more challenging, requiring greater cognitive effort and diverting attention from other tasks. This demonstrates that protecting hearing is not only about preserving the sense of sound, it is essential for maintaining neural efficiency and cognitive function. Preventive strategies begin with awareness of environmental sound levels. Sounds above 85 decibels, such as heavy traffic, power tools, or loud music, can cause cumulative damage if exposure is prolonged. Ear protection, including foam earplugs or high-fidelity musician's earplugs, can reduce the intensity of harmful sounds while preserving clarity. These protective measures are particularly important for individuals who work in noisy settings, attend frequent live music events, or use headphones at high volume for extended periods. Limiting daily exposure and taking regular breaks from noisy environments allows the cochlea to recover from transient stress, reducing the risk of long-term damage. Headphones and personal audio devices are often overlooked sources of auditory strain. Listening at high volumes, especially for hours at a time, increases pressure on hair cells and the auditory nerve. Guidelines recommend following the 60-60 rule, listening at no more than 60% of maximum volume for no more than 60 minutes at a stretch, with breaks in between. Using noise-canceling headphones can also reduce the need to raise volume in noisy settings, protecting hearing while maintaining clarity of sound. Education and consistent habits are essential for long-term protection. Regular hearing assessments allow early detection of subtle declines, enabling interventions before damage becomes permanent. Incorporating auditory rest periods, avoiding unnecessary exposure to loud environments, and instilling protective practices from an early age ensures that auditory pathways remain robust. The cumulative effect of these strategies is not only the preservation of hearing, but also the maintenance of rich sensory input to the brain, which supports cognitive health, attention, and memory processes. Ultimately, preventing loud noise-induced hearing damage is a proactive measure that safeguards both auditory function and the neural circuits that depend on sound. By understanding the vulnerability of cochlear hair cells, recognizing high-risk environments, and implementing protective habits, individuals can maintain acute auditory perception, prevent long-term degeneration, and preserve the cognitive benefits that come from consistent, high-quality sensory input. Cardiovascular and metabolic health play a foundational role in preserving hearing and supporting overall brain function, as both the cochlea and neural networks rely heavily on consistent blood flow and nutrient delivery. The cochlea, located deep within the inner ear, is particularly sensitive to oxygen and glucose supply because it contains high-energy hair cells that transduce sound into electrical signals. Any reduction in blood flow, whether due to hypertension, atherosclerosis, or other vascular conditions, can impair the function of these hair cells, leading to diminished auditory sensitivity, tinnitus, or even permanent hearing loss. Similarly, the brain depends on a continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients to maintain synaptic function, neuroplasticity, and cognitive performance. Poor cardiovascular health can therefore simultaneously compromise auditory processing and higher-order cognitive functions, such as memory, attention, and executive control. Maintaining cardiovascular fitness is one of the most effective ways to support auditory and brain health. Regular aerobic exercise, such as walking, cycling, swimming, or running, improves heart efficiency, enhances vascular elasticity, and promotes increased blood flow to peripheral tissues, including the cochlea. Enhanced circulation ensures that the hair cells and supporting structures in the inner ear receive adequate oxygen and nutrients, reducing the risk of oxidative stress and age-related degeneration. Exercise also stimulates angiogenesis, the growth of new blood vessels, which can further protect both auditory and neural tissues from ischemic damage. Additionally, physical activity increases the production of neurotrophic factors, including brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which supports neural survival, plasticity, and synaptic connectivity. These combined effects contribute to sharper hearing, improved auditory processing, and more efficient cognitive function. Metabolic health is equally critical, as glucose regulation and energy balance directly influence the function of auditory and neural cells. Conditions such as type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, or obesity can impair microvascular circulation and lead to chronic inflammation, both of which damage delicate cochlear structures and the broader nervous system. High blood sugar levels can create oxidative stress, accelerate cellular aging, and reduce the responsiveness of hair cells to sound stimuli. Maintaining stable blood glucose through a balanced diet rich in whole foods, fiber, lean proteins, and healthy fats supports cochlear integrity and overall brain health. Proper nutrition also provides essential vitamins and minerals, such as B vitamins, magnesium, and antioxidants that enhance cellular energy production, reduce inflammation, and protect against age-related auditory decline. Lifestyle factors that combine cardiovascular and metabolic optimization have compounding benefits for auditory and cognitive resilience. Adequate sleep, for example, supports cardiovascular recovery, regulates metabolic hormones, and allows the brain to consolidate memory, all of which reinforce auditory and cognitive function. Stress management techniques, including meditation, controlled breathing, or moderate physical activity, reduce sympathetic overactivation, protect blood vessels, and improve circulation to critical sensory and neural regions. Avoiding smoking and limiting alcohol intake further reduces vascular damage and oxidative stress, maintaining both cochlear health and cognitive performance over time. Regular monitoring of cardiovascular and metabolic markers is also essential. Blood pressure, lipid profiles, and glucose levels provide insight into potential risks for vascular and metabolic dysfunction that could compromise hearing and brain health. Early detection and proactive management allow interventions, whether through exercise, diet, or medical treatment, to prevent damage before it becomes irreversible. By integrating cardiovascular and metabolic care into daily routines, individuals create an internal environment that supports optimal blood flow, oxygenation, and nutrient delivery to the cochlea and brain. This ensures that auditory processing remains precise, neural networks remain robust, and cognitive functions such as attention, memory, and learning are maintained. Over time, these practices not only preserve hearing but also enhance the overall resilience and efficiency of the nervous system. Nutrition and antioxidants play a pivotal role in maintaining hearing and supporting brain health, as both the auditory system and the central nervous system rely on adequate nutrient supply to function optimally and resist oxidative stress. The cochlea, in particular, is highly metabolically active, with hair cells that require continuous energy to transduce sound into electrical signals for the brain. These hair cells are vulnerable to damage from free radicals, unstable molecules that arise from normal metabolic processes, environmental toxins, or excessive noise exposure. If free radicals accumulate unchecked, they can damage cellular structures, proteins, and DNA, leading to hair cell death, tinnitus, and gradual hearing loss. Similarly, the brain is highly susceptible to oxidative stress, which impairs synaptic plasticity, disrupts neurotransmitter function, and accelerates age-related cognitive decline. A diet rich in antioxidants provides a protective mechanism, neutralizing free radicals and reducing the risk of cellular damage across auditory and neural pathways. Omega-3 fatty acids are among the most important nutrients for auditory and cognitive health. Found in fatty fish, flax seeds, and walnuts, these essential fats support cellular membrane integrity, improve blood flow, and reduce inflammation. In the cochlea, omega-3s help maintain the delicate structures of hair cells and the microvascular system that supplies them, while in the brain, they support synaptic function, neurogenesis, and communication between neurons. Adequate omega-3 intake has been linked to improved auditory processing, enhanced cognitive performance, and reduced risk of age-related hearing loss and neurodegenerative conditions. Vitamins such as B12, D, and E also contribute to auditory and brain health. Vitamin B12 supports myelin formation and neural transmission, which is critical for processing sound signals efficiently. Deficiencies can result in slower nerve conduction, reduced auditory sensitivity, and cognitive impairment. Vitamin D promotes vascular health and protects against inflammation, ensuring that both cochlear and cerebral tissues receive sufficient oxygen and nutrients. Vitamin E functions as a potent antioxidant, neutralizing free radicals and preventing oxidative damage to hair cells and neural circuits. Together, these vitamins provide both structural and functional support, maintaining the integrity of the auditory system while enhancing cognitive resilience. Antioxidant-rich foods, including berries, dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and colorful vegetables, supply polyphenols and other compounds that further reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. These compounds not only protect hair cells from environmental and metabolic insults, but also support neuroplasticity, memory formation, and executive function. Regular consumption of antioxidant-rich foods helps mitigate the cumulative effects of daily stressors, noise exposure, and metabolic byproducts, preserving both hearing and brain function over time. Hydration and overall metabolic support are also critical, as the cochlea and brain require an optimal extracellular environment for signal transmission and cellular energy production. Adequate water intake ensures that nutrients are effectively delivered to hair cells and neurons, while also supporting the removal of metabolic waste. Coupled with a nutrient-dense diet, proper hydration enhances the efficiency of antioxidant mechanisms and reduces the likelihood of cellular stress. Lifestyle integration of nutrition and antioxidants is most effective when combined with other protective strategies, such as cardiovascular health management, auditory safety, and cognitive engagement. The cumulative effect of a nutrient-rich diet is not only the preservation of hearing acuity, but also the enhancement of neural networks that underlie memory, attention, and learning. Over time, consistent nutritional support strengthens the resilience of the auditory system and the brain, ensuring that both remain adaptive, responsive. Cognitive and auditory training are essential strategies for maintaining and improving hearing and brain health, as they actively engage neural circuits that support attention, memory, and auditory processing. The brain relies on continuous stimulation to reinforce synaptic connections and promote neuroplasticity, which is the ability of neural networks to adapt, reorganize, and strengthen in response to experience. Engaging in activities that challenge the auditory system, such as listening to complex sounds, distinguishing between frequencies, or practicing auditory discrimination, stimulates the auditory cortex and its connections with higher-order cognitive regions, including the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. This ongoing engagement ensures that neural circuits responsible for processing, interpreting, and integrating sound remain active, robust, and efficient throughout life. Learning a musical instrument is one of the most effective forms of cognitive auditory training. Playing music requires precise auditory discrimination, fine motor coordination, timing, and memory, all of which activate multiple interconnected brain regions simultaneously. The auditory cortex processes pitch, tone, and rhythm, while the prefrontal cortex manages planning, attention, and sequencing. The hippocampus encodes patterns and consolidates learning, and the cerebellum coordinates motor output with sensory input. This multisensory engagement strengthens synaptic connections across these regions, improving not only musical ability, but also general auditory processing, attention, and cognitive flexibility. Studies have shown that musicians often demonstrate superior auditory discrimination, faster reaction times to auditory stimuli, and enhanced working memory compared to non-musicians, highlighting the cross-functional benefits of auditory training. Auditory training exercises, even outside of music, can also enhance neural processing and cognitive function. Activities such as identifying subtle differences in tones, recognizing speech in noisy environments, or following complex auditory patterns improve the precision and speed of auditory signal processing. These exercises reinforce the brain's ability to filter relevant auditory information, strengthen top-down control from the prefrontal cortex, and enhance attention to auditory stimuli. Repeated practice encourages neuroplastic changes, increasing the efficiency of communication between the auditory cortex, hippocampus, and frontal regions responsible for executive function. Multisensory engagement further enhances the effects of cognitive auditory training. Integrating visual, vestibular, and motor input with auditory tasks strengthens networks that support spatial awareness, coordination, and higher-order processing. Activities such as dance, rhythmic exercise, or interactive auditory motor games engage vestibular feedback alongside sound processing, reinforcing neural circuits that link sensory perception with cognitive control. This integration improves attention, memory, and learning speed, while also providing resilience against age-related cognitive decline. Regular cognitive auditory engagement also protects against the negative effects of hearing loss and sensory deprivation. When the auditory system receives less input due to damage or age-related decline, neural circuits can weaken or reorganize maladaptively, reducing processing efficiency and impacting cognitive function. By continuously challenging the auditory system with complex, novel, and engaging tasks, individuals maintain the activity of these circuits, preserving both hearing acuity and cognitive performance. In addition, cognitive auditory training supports the brain's ability to adapt to new auditory environments, enhancing sound localization, speech comprehension in noisy settings, and the processing of overlapping auditory cues. These skills are critical for effective communication, social interaction, and environmental awareness, demonstrating that auditory training has both practical and neuroprotective benefits. Overall, integrating cognitive and auditory exercises into daily life strengthens the neural circuits that underpin hearing, attention, memory, and learning. By consistently challenging the brain with complex sounds, multisensory tasks, and novel auditory experiences, individuals promote neuroplasticity, maintain auditory acuity, and enhance cognitive resilience, creating a foundation for lifelong brain and hearing health. Vestibular and balance integration play a critical role in supporting both hearing and overall brain health, as the vestibular system provides continuous feedback about head position, movement, and spatial orientation that is tightly integrated with auditory and cognitive processing. The vestibular organs, located in the inner ear alongside the cochlea, send information to the brainstem, cerebellum, and cortical areas responsible for spatial awareness and motor coordination. This input allows the brain to distinguish between self-motion and motion in the environment, coordinate eye movements with head movements, and maintain equilibrium. When vestibular function is strong and well integrated with auditory signals, the brain can accurately localize sounds, process complex auditory environments, and maintain attentional focus, which are all essential for cognitive performance and learning. Exercises that engage the vestibular system, such as balance drills, yoga, Tai Chi, or activities that involve controlled head movements stimulate these neural circuits and reinforce connections with the auditory and visual systems. For instance, when performing balance exercises with eyes closed or while following auditory cues, the brain must rely on vestibular feedback to maintain stability and interpret sound location. This process strengthens multisensory integration, enhancing the precision and speed with which auditory and spatial information is processed. Over time, these activities improve sound localization, reaction times, and the ability to focus in complex environments, illustrating the interdependence of vestibular, auditory, and cognitive systems. The cerebellum plays a central role in integrating vestibular input with motor and cognitive functions. As vestibular signals arrive in the cerebellum, they are combined with proprioceptive and visual information to fine-tune balance and coordination. The cerebellum also communicates with the prefrontal cortex, supporting attention, planning, and error correction during complex tasks. Strengthening vestibular input through training enhances these pathways, which in turn supports higher-order cognitive functions. This is particularly important for activities that require simultaneous auditory processing and motor coordination, such as sports, dancing, or even navigating crowded environments, where accurate integration of multiple sensory modalities is necessary for performance and safety. Vestibular auditory integration is also critical for cognitive resilience as individuals age. Age-related decline in vestibular function can lead to balance problems, falls, and reduced spatial awareness, which in turn can negatively affect auditory processing and cognitive function. Engaging in vestibular exercises throughout life helps maintain the integrity of these circuits, promoting sustained auditory precision, neural connectivity, and cognitive flexibility. Moreover, these exercises can counteract the effects of sensory deprivation caused by hearing loss or reduced environmental stimulation, preserving the richness of input to the brain and supporting neuroplasticity. Multisensory training that combines auditory and vestibular challenges further enhances learning and attentional control. For example, tasks that require following complex sound patterns while maintaining balance or performing coordinated movements increase the efficiency of neural networks linking auditory, vestibular, and prefrontal regions. This strengthens the brain's ability to filter relevant sensory information, focus attention, and integrate environmental cues in real time. In addition, vestibular integration supports stress regulation and emotional resilience. Controlled balance and movement exercises engage parasympathetic pathways, reduce physiological arousal, and create an internal state conducive to learning and memory consolidation. By enhancing vestibular function, the brain not only improves auditory processing and spatial cognition, but also optimizes the overall neural environment for attention, learning, and emotional regulation. Ultimately, integrating vestibular and balance training into daily routines strengthens the neural circuits that connect the inner ear, cerebellum, and cortical regions. By promoting multisensory integration, spatial awareness, and cognitive control, vestibular exercises preserve auditory acuity, enhance learning capacity, and support lifelong brain health and functional resilience. Minimizing inflammation and limiting exposure to toxins are essential strategies for protecting both hearing and brain health, as chronic inflammation and environmental stressors can damage delicate neural and cochlear structures over time. The inner ear is particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress and inflammatory processes, because cochlear hair cells and supporting structures require precise metabolic conditions to function optimally. Even low-level chronic inflammation can impair the blood supply, reduce oxygen and nutrient delivery, and increase susceptibility to cellular damage, ultimately leading to hearing loss, tinnitus, or diminished auditory processing. Similarly, the brain is highly sensitive to inflammatory signals and toxins, which can disrupt synaptic function, impair neuroplasticity, and accelerate age-related cognitive decline. Addressing these factors proactively is critical for maintaining long-term auditory acuity, cognitive performance, and neural resilience. Dietary habits play a central role in controlling inflammation. Diets rich in processed foods, refined sugars, and trans fats contribute to systemic inflammation and oxidative stress, which negatively affect vascular health, neural circuits, and cochlear function. Conversely, consuming anti-inflammatory foods such as leafy greens, berries, fatty fish, nuts, seeds, and whole grains provides antioxidants, polyphenols, and essential fatty acids that neutralize free radicals and reduce inflammatory signaling. These nutrients protect the cochlea from oxidative damage, maintain neural integrity, and support the efficient transmission of auditory signals to the brain. Regular intake of these protective nutrients also enhances neuroplasticity, supporting learning, memory, and attentional processes. Lifestyle factors beyond diet also influence inflammation and toxin exposure. Smoking introduces a variety of ototoxic chemicals that damage hair cells and blood vessels in the inner ear, while simultaneously impairing brain health. Limiting alcohol consumption reduces neuroinflammation and preserves the metabolic and vascular environments necessary for optimal auditory and cognitive function. Managing chronic stress is equally important, as prolonged sympathetic activation increases cortisol levels, promotes inflammatory signaling, and can compromise both hearing and cognitive performance. Stress-reducing practices such as mindfulness, controlled breathing, physical activity, and adequate sleep mitigate these effects and create a physiological environment conducive to neural health. Environmental toxins, including heavy metals, industrial pollutants, and certain medications, can have ototoxic and neurotoxic effects. Exposure to substances like lead, mercury, or solvents can damage cochlear hair cells, auditory nerves, and brain tissue. Regular monitoring of environmental conditions, using protective equipment in high-risk settings, and choosing non-toxic household and personal care products reduce cumulative exposure to these harmful agents. Additionally, avoiding medications with known ototoxic effects or consulting healthcare professionals for safer alternatives can prevent iatrogenic hearing and cognitive damage. Hydration and metabolic support further complement anti-inflammatory strategies. Adequate water intake supports nutrient delivery and waste removal from both cochlear and neural tissues, While stable blood glucose levels prevent metabolic stress that could trigger inflammatory cascades, regular physical activity improves vascular function, enhances oxygen and nutrient delivery, and reduces systemic inflammation, directly benefiting auditory and cognitive systems. Combining these approaches creates a multi-layered defense against auditory and neural degeneration. Anti-inflammatory nutrition, toxin avoidance, stress management, and physical activity collectively maintain hair cell integrity, preserve auditory signal transmission, and protect cognitive circuits from oxidative and inflammatory damage. Over time, these habits not only prevent decline but actively support neuroplasticity, attention, memory, and learning efficiency, establishing a resilient foundation for long-term hearing and brain health. By consistently minimizing inflammation and reducing exposure to toxins, the auditory system and brain are placed in an optimal environment for long-term health and function. These practices protect delicate cochlear structures, preserve neural connectivity, and support cognitive performance, ensuring that hearing remains sharp and the brain remains resilient. Over time, this proactive approach reinforces neuroplasticity, enhances sensory processing, and fosters lifelong auditory acuity and mental clarity.